Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the TSS Harmony, watching the stars drift past through the massive viewing window. Her ship was one of humanity's largest vessels, but it carried no weapons of war. Instead, its cargo holds were filled with medical supplies, food, and rescue equipment. This was the way of humanity among the stars. For 300 years, humans had been the peacekeepers of the galaxy. When the Zephyrian Empire and the Krell Confederacy fought over mining rights, human diplomats stepped in to find fair solutions. When plague struck the Altarian colonies, human medical ships arrived first. When refugees fled from wars they didn't start, human worlds opened their doors. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Torres from the communications station, "we're receiving a distress signal from New Horizon Colony. They're not responding to our calls." Sarah's stomach tightened. New Horizon was one of humanity's outer colonies, home to 50,000 people. It was a peaceful farming world that grew food for 3 nearby star systems. The colonists there had never hurt anyone. "Set course for New Horizon, maximum speed," Sarah ordered, "and send word to Earth. Something's wrong." The Harmony jumped to faster-than-light travel, racing toward the colony. During the journey, Sarah tried to stay calm, but worry ate at her mind. In space, when colonies went silent, it usually meant death. Dr. Marcus Webb sat in his office on Earth, reading reports from across the galaxy. As head of the Terran Peace Institute, he spent his days solving conflicts that had lasted for centuries. Just last week, he had helped end a trade war between 2 alien species that had been fighting for 40 years. His assistant, Maria Santos, knocked on his door. "Dr. Webb, Admiral Chen is calling from the Harmony. She says it's urgent." Marcus picked up the communication device. Sarah's face appeared on the screen, and he could see the worry in her eyes. "Marcus, we've lost contact with 3 colonies in the past week," Sarah said. "New Horizon, Peaceful Valley, and Dawn's Light. All of them just stopped talking." "Pirates?" Marcus asked, though he knew it didn't feel right. "Pirates took things and left. They didn't make entire colonies." "Disappear?" "I don't think so. We're heading to New Horizon now. I'll send you everything we find." The call ended, and Marcus stared out his window at the peaceful gardens below. Earth had been at peace for so long that most humans had forgotten what war looked like. They had turned their backs on violence and embraced diplomacy, science, and art. It was humanity's greatest achievement, but now something was hunting them in the dark. The Harmony dropped out of faster-than-light travel near New Horizon. What they found made Sarah's blood run cold. The colony was gone. Not destroyed by weapons or burned by fire, but simply empty. Buildings stood intact, but there were no people, no bodies, no signs of struggle. "Send down the search teams," Sarah ordered. "I want every building checked." For hours, the team searched. They found meals half-eaten on tables, children's toys scattered in playgrounds, personal belongings left behind as if people had simply vanished in the middle of their daily lives. Then they found the message. In the center of the colony's main square, burned into the ground in letters 20 feet tall, words appeared in 12 different alien languages. Lieutenant Torres read the translation aloud. "The weak will be culled." Sarah stared at the message, feeling ice in her veins. This wasn't random. This wasn't pirates or accidents. Someone had targeted humanity specifically. Someone had declared war on the most peaceful species in the galaxy. On the Krell homeworld, General Vex watched the news reports with satisfaction. The humans were starting to understand their place in the universe. For too long, these soft mammals had been treated as equals by the Galactic Federation. It was time they learned that the strong ruled and the weak served. "Are our ships ready for the next phase?" Vex asked his aide. "Yes, General. The human colony at Peaceful Valley will be next." "Good. Make sure you leave the same message. I want them to know this isn't random." Vex had spent years building the secret alliance that now struck at humanity. The Apex Coalition, he called it. 7 of the galaxy's most powerful military species, united in their belief that might made right. They had watched humans grow soft and weak, spreading their foolish ideas about peace and cooperation. The humans would learn. The universe belonged to predators, not prey. Admiral Chen returned to Earth with heavy news. In the Federation Council chambers, she stood before representatives of hundreds of alien species. Many of them looked uncomfortable. Some looked guilty. 3 human colonies have been attacked, Sarah said, her voice steady despite her anger. 53,000 civilians are missing. We have evidence that this was planned and coordinated. The Zephyrian ambassador, a tall creature with silver skin and cold eyes, spoke first. Perhaps these humans simply left their colonies. They are known for their wandering nature. Angry murmurs rose from the human delegation. Sarah raised her hand for silence. We found evidence of advanced technology used to transport large numbers of people. This was an abduction on a massive scale. Or, said the Krell representative, they staged their own disappearance to gain sympathy from the Federation. Sarah felt her control slipping. These creatures were accusing humans of murdering their own people. But she forced herself to stay calm. This was what humans did. They found peaceful solutions. We request a full Federation investigation, Sarah said, and we ask for protection for our remaining colonies while the investigation takes place. The vote was close, but not close enough. The Federation Council refused both requests. Insufficient evidence, they declared. Internal human matter. Dr. Webb watched the Federation proceedings from Earth. His wife, Elena, sat beside him, holding their young daughter, Sophie. They had been planning to visit one of the outer colonies next month. Now that felt impossible. They're not going to help us, are they? Elena asked quietly. Marcus shook his head. They think we're weak. They think we won't fight back, will we? Marcus looked at his daughter, playing with her toys, innocent and trusting. I don't know. We've spent 3 centuries teaching ourselves that violence is never the answer. But as he spoke, alarms began ringing across Earth. Another colony had gone silent. Then another. The attackers weren't stopping. They were getting bolder. In space, Admiral Chen stood on her bridge, watching reports pour in from across human space. The attacks were spreading. Whoever was doing this had declared open war on humanity. Admiral, said Torres, I'm getting word from the outer colonies. They're asking for protection. They're scared. Sarah nodded grimly. She had spent her entire career rescuing people, saving lives, and keeping peace. She commanded the largest human fleet in space, but it was designed for exploration and rescue, not war. For the first time in 3 centuries, humanity faced an enemy that wanted to destroy them completely. The galaxy's most peaceful species was being forced toward a choice they had hoped never to make again. In the depths of space, more ships moved in the darkness. The Apex Coalition was just beginning their campaign. They believed they were hunting helpless prey. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. The attacks came faster now. Each week brought news of another human colony going silent. Admiral Sarah Chen had stopped sleeping properly. Her ship, the Harmony, raced from one disaster to another, but they were always too late. They found empty colonies, burned messages, and sometimes worse. At Peaceful Valley, they found signs of a fight. Scorch marks on buildings, blood in the streets, but still no bodies. The attackers had taken everyone, living or dead. 57,000 more people. Lieutenant Torres reported, his voice hollow. That makes over 200,000 humans, missing or dead. Sarah stared at the empty colony below. 200,000 people. Fathers, mothers, children, teachers, farmers. All gone because someone had decided humanity was weak. On Earth, Dr. Marcus Webb sat in emergency meetings that seemed to go nowhere. The Terran Peace Council debated and discussed while more colonies died. They sent strongly worded messages to the Federation. They offered rewards for information. They begged for help. Nothing worked. "We need to consider military action," said General Rodriguez, one of the few humans who still remembered how to fight. "Violence only creates more violence," Dr. Webb replied, though his words felt hollow even to himself. "We have to find another way." "Marcus," said Council Leader Harrison, "I admire your principles. But our people are dying. At what point do we admit that peaceful solutions aren't working?" Dr. Webb thought of his daughter Sophie, safe in their home on Earth. But for how long? The attacks were moving closer to the core human worlds. The Krell Confederacy played their part perfectly. General Vex had coached his people well. When human diplomats came asking questions, the Krell expressed sympathy and offered help. But their help always came with conditions. "Of course we will help you find these attackers," said the Krell ambassador. "But our fleets are busy protecting our own territories. Perhaps if humanity shared their advanced medical technology, we could spare some ships." It was extortion disguised as diplomacy. The humans needed help, so the Krell would extract payment for providing it. Other species watched and learned. If the Krell could profit from human desperation, why shouldn't they? The Zephyrian Empire was more direct. Their ships began appearing near human colonies, offering protection services for a price. "Your colonies are clearly under threat," the Zephyrian fleet commander told Admiral Chen during one tense meeting. "Our warships could guard your people. All we ask is access to your agricultural technology and a small payment of resources." Sarah wanted to punch the smug alien in his silver face, but she forced herself to stay diplomatic. This was the human way. "We appreciate your offer," she said through gritted teeth. "But humanity prefers to defend itself." "With what?" The Zephyrian laughed. "Your rescue ships? Your medical vessels? You have no weapons, Admiral. Face reality." The worst part was that he was right. Human ships were designed for peace. They had sensors, shields, and engines, but no weapons. The largest guns in the human fleet were designed to clear asteroids, not fight enemy ships. As the attacks continued, evidence began to appear. Fragments of alien technology left behind at attack sites, communication intercepts that pointed to specific species. But every lead was carefully planted, designed to confuse rather than reveal the truth. The Altarians found Krell weapon fragments near one attacked colony. The Krell found Zephyrian technology near another. Each species accused the others, while the real attackers stayed hidden. "It's deliberate," Admiral Chen told Dr. Webb during one of their calls. "Someone wants us to see this evidence. They want us confused and angry. But who benefits from our confusion?" "Everyone," Sarah replied bitterly. "Every species that thinks we're too weak to matter. The breakthrough came by accident. A human cargo ship carrying supplies to a threatened colony was attacked by unknown vessels. But the ship's captain, Maria Santos, was Dr. Webb's former assistant. She was smart and careful. Instead of fighting or running, she hid her ship behind an asteroid and recorded everything. The attackers weren't careful enough. They thought they had destroyed all witnesses. The recording showed ships from 7 different species working together: Krell, Zephyrian, Altarian, and 4 others. They coordinated their attack like a practiced military unit. At the end, their commanders met in space to celebrate. "The Apex Coalition grows stronger," said General Vex in the recording. "Soon the humans will be broken completely." Dr. Webb watched the recording with growing horror. 7 species. 7 of the galaxy's most powerful military forces, all united in their desire to destroy humanity. "They've been planning this for years," he whispered. "This isn't random violence. This is genocide. The evidence should have been enough to get Federation help, should have been enough to prove human innocence. But when Dr. Webb presented it to the Federation Council, the response was worse than he had feared. "This recording could be faked," said the Altarian representative, whose own species was shown in the video. "Even if real, it shows only a few ships," added the Zephyrian ambassador. "You cannot judge entire species by the actions of criminals." The Federation voted again. Again, they refused to help. Worse, they began to distance themselves from humanity officially. Trade agreements were canceled. Embassy staff was recalled. Species that had been allies for centuries turned their backs. Humanity was alone. The final provocation came without warning. New Geneva was humanity's largest civilian colony, home to 50 million people. It was a beautiful world of cities and parks, universities, and hospitals. Children played in gardens while their parents worked in laboratories and libraries. Dr. Webb was there, visiting the new medical research center. His wife, Elena, and daughter Sophie were with him. They had come to see the work being done to cure diseases that affected dozens of species across the galaxy. The orbital platforms appeared suddenly, dropping out of faster-than-light travel directly above the planet. Admiral Chen's fleet was 3 hours away. The nearest Federation ships belonged to species that were probably part of the attack. "This is General Vex of the Apex Coalition," came the transmission. "The human experiment ends today. Your weakness will no longer infect the galaxy." Dr. Webb stood in the medical center, watching the death ships position themselves above his world. Around him, doctors and nurses continued their work, trying to save lives even as death approached from space. "Elena, take Sophie to the emergency shelters," he said calmly. "What about you? I need to try to negotiate. It's what I do." Elena kissed him goodbye. It would be the last time he saw his family alive. Dr. Webb's final transmission went out to the galaxy. He stood in the medical center, surrounded by children's drawings from the hospital ward, speaking to the aliens who were about to murder. "Millions. I know you think we're weak," he said. "But weakness isn't the opposite of strength. It's the choice to use strength wisely. We chose peace not because we couldn't fight, but because we hoped we wouldn't have to." General Vex's response was simple. "Hope is for the weak." The bombardment began at sunset. Orbital weapons turned a peaceful world into a burning wasteland. Cities became craters. Hospitals became ash. Children's laughter became silence. Admiral Chen arrived to find New Geneva dying. Her rescue ships pulled survivors from the wreckage, but there were so few. 50 million people had become 50,000 refugees. In the ruins of the medical center, they found Dr. Webb's body. He had died trying to shield injured children from falling debris. In his hand was a final message, recorded just before the end. "I was wrong. Some people only understand one language. We forgot how to speak it, but we can learn again. Elena, Sophie, I'm sorry I couldn't save you, but someone will make them pay." Sarah read the message and felt something break inside. Her. Not her spirit, but her restraint. Dr. Webb had been humanity's greatest advocate for peace. If he could change his mind, maybe it was time for all of them to change. She opened a secured communication channel to Earth. When the Terran Council appeared on screen, they looked older, sadder, broken. "Admiral," said Council Leader Harrison, "what are your orders?" For the first time in 3 centuries, a human military officer said the words that would change everything. "I'm declaring a state of war." The news of New Geneva's destruction spread across human space like wildfire. 50 million dead, the largest massacre in galactic history, and the Federation did nothing. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the emergency session of the Terran Council. The peaceful chamber where humans had debated diplomatic solutions for centuries now hummed with anger. She could feel it in the air, thick and dangerous. "The vote is unanimous," announced Council Leader Harrison, his voice heavy with grief. "Admiral Chen, you now have complete military authority over all human forces. Do what needs to be done." Sarah nodded. She had hoped this day would never come. "I need access to the archives. All of them." For 300 years, humanity had locked away its violent past. The military records, the weapon designs, the tactical knowledge that had once made Earth's armies unstoppable. They had buried it, all, choosing to become healers instead of killers, but they had never destroyed it. Deep beneath Earth's surface, in vaults that most humans had forgotten existed, the archives began to open. Genetic locks that recognized only human DNA granted access to secrets that predated first contact with alien species. Dr. Elizabeth Reyes, Earth's chief military historian, had spent her career studying peaceful solutions to conflicts. Now she found herself reading documents that made her hands shake. "Admiral," she called Sarah on a secure channel, "you need to see this. Our ancestors, they weren't just good at war. They were terrifying at it." The files painted a picture of humanity's past that most modern humans couldn't imagine. Before they reached the stars, humans had fought each other for thousands of years. They had created weapons that could crack planets. They had developed tactics that turned entire solar systems into death traps. But more than weapons or tactics, the files revealed something about human nature itself. Humans didn't just fight to win. They fought to utterly destroy anything that threatened their families. When pushed to the edge, they became something that made other predator species look gentle. "There's more," Dr. Reyes continued. "Hidden facilities. Ships we built but never used. Weapons we designed but never deployed. It's all been maintained by automated systems. Waiting." Sarah felt her blood run cold. How much? Enough to fight a war against the entire galaxy. And win. The transformation began immediately. Across human space, hidden facilities came online. Factories that had spent centuries building medical equipment and agricultural tools now switched to military production. The same precision that had made human doctors the best in the galaxy now created weapons of unprecedented accuracy. But the real change was in the humans themselves. Lieutenant Torres, who had spent his career rescuing stranded ships, found himself studying tactical manuals that his grandfather had written during Earth's last war. The knowledge felt familiar, like remembering a language he had spoken as a child. "It's in our DNA," explained Dr. Reyes during a briefing. "Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We chased prey across continents until it collapsed from exhaustion. We're built for long-term warfare." Admiral Chen absorbed the information with growing understanding. Humans weren't just good at war because of their technology. They were good at it because they never stopped. Other species fought until they were tired. Humans fought until their enemies were dead. The first test came when a Krell raiding fleet attacked the human colony at Riverside. It was meant to be another easy target, another group of peaceful humans to abduct or kill. The Krell ships dropped, out of faster-than-light travel expecting to find defenseless civilians. Instead, they found the TSS Vengeance waiting for them. The Vengeance had been a medical ship just weeks before. Now it mounted weapons that the galaxy had never seen. Kinetic, bombardment cannons that fired metal slugs at significant fractions of light speed. Quantum disruption beams that tore apart matter at the atomic level. Captain Rodriguez, who had once rescued Krell civilians from a plague outbreak, now commanded the ship that would introduce the galaxy to human warfare. "Krell vessels," he transmitted. "You have 30 seconds to surrender." General Vex's nephew commanded the Krell fleet. He laughed at the human demand. "One human ship against 12 Krell warships? You cannot be serious." Rodriguez's response was simple. 29 seconds. The Krell fleet opened fire, their weapons designed to disable and capture rather than destroy. They still thought they were fighting weak prey. The Vengeance fired once. The kinetic bombardment round punched through all 12 Krell ships in a single shot. The metal slug, accelerated to tremendous speed, didn't slow down as it passed through. Alien hulls, weapons, and engines. In 4.7 seconds, the entire Krell fleet was floating wreckage. But the Vengeance wasn't finished. As Krell escape pods launched from the dying ships, Captain Rodriguez made a decision that would echo across the Galaxy. Destroy the escape pods, he ordered. His crew hesitated. Killing combatants in battle was one thing. Destroying escape pods was something else entirely. Sir, said his tactical officer, they're no longer a threat. Rodriguez's voice was ice. They murdered 50 million civilians at New Geneva. They wanted to see what humans do in war. Show them. The escape pods vanished in balls of fire. The recording of the battle spread across galactic communication networks within hours. Species that had ignored human pleas for help now watched in shock as human weapons erased an entire fleet in seconds. But it was the destruction of the escape pods that truly terrified them. The galaxy had rules about war. You didn't kill prisoners. You didn't destroy medical ships. You didn't target civilians. Humans, it seemed, had different rules. Admiral Chen stood in the war room that had been hastily constructed beneath Earth's surface. Around her, displays showed the positions of human fleets across the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, those fleets carried weapons. Admiral, reported Captain Torres, now serving as her intelligence officer, we're intercepting communications from across the galaxy. The alien species are afraid. Good, Sarah replied. They should be. The communications Torres had intercepted painted a picture of growing panic among Earth's enemies. The Apex Coalition had expected to crush humanity quickly, before they could organize a defense. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that fought like nothing they had ever seen. These humans, transmitted one terrified Altarian commander, they don't fight like civilized species. They don't try to disable our ships or capture our crews. They just kill everything. Another message, from a Zephyrian fleet that had encountered human forces, was even more disturbing. They knew exactly where we would be. They laid traps that we couldn't detect. Their ships are faster and stronger than our intelligence suggested. It's as if they've been preparing for this war for centuries. They had been preparing, in a way. Every human rescue mission had been a scouting operation. Every diplomatic meeting had been intelligence gathering. For 300 years, humanity had mapped the galaxy's military capabilities while appearing to be harmless explorers. Now they were using that knowledge. The counterattack began with surgical precision. Human fleets struck Apex Coalition bases across the galaxy, but they didn't target military installations alone. They hit supply lines, communication networks, and training facilities. Within weeks, the Coalition's ability to coordinate attacks collapsed. But the humans weren't content with defensive victories. They began hunting. Every alien ship that had participated in attacks on human colonies found itself on a target list. Human task forces, moving faster and striking harder than anything the galaxy had seen, tracked down individual commanders and destroyed them. General Vex himself barely escaped when human forces cornered his personal fleet near the Krell homeworld. His flagship was crippled, his escort destroyed, and his reputation ruined. The general, who had boasted about culling the weak, now hid in deep space, afraid to return home. How? He demanded of his surviving officers. How did prey become predators? Overnight. His aide, wounded in the human attack, gave him the answer that was beginning to spread across the galaxy. They were never prey, General. They were predators pretending to be prey. We forced them to stop pretending. The full truth was beginning to emerge from human archives that alien intelligence services had never suspected existed. Humanity hadn't become peaceful through weakness or evolution. They had chosen peace after becoming so good at war that they frightened themselves. Their last major conflict, the resource wars of the 23rd century, had nearly destroyed their homeworld. The weapons they created were so powerful, the tactics so ruthless, that human leaders had made a collective decision to ban warfare entirely. Now, faced with extinction, they had lifted that ban. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the TSS Retribution. Unlike the Harmony, this ship was built for war. Its weapons could crack moons. Its armor could withstand direct hits from the galaxy's most powerful guns. Its engines could outrun anything the alien species had built. But the ship's most dangerous weapon was its crew. Humans who had spent their lives saving alien species now used that same knowledge to destroy them more efficiently. "Admiral," reported her tactical officer, "long-range sensors are detecting the main Apex Coalition fleet, 200 ships including their command vessels." The human war fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. 3,000 ships, each one a masterpiece of human engineering and violence. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the TSS Retribution, watching the enemy. Fleet scrambled to respond. 200 ships against 3,000, observed Captain Torres. They're outnumbered 15-1. "Numbers don't matter if they can't fight back," Sarah replied coldly. "Begin the operation." What followed wasn't a battle, it was an execution. The human fleet split into 12 task forces, each one moving with precision that made the galaxy's greatest military minds look like children. They had studied alien tactics for centuries, learning every weakness, every blind spot, every predictable response. The Apex Coalition tried to form a defensive line, but the humans weren't interested in traditional warfare. Half their ships simply vanished, using stealth technology that the aliens didn't know existed. When they reappeared, they were behind enemy lines, targeting command ships and communication relays. General Vex watched in horror as his flagship's tactical display filled with red markers. Human ships were everywhere, moving too fast to track, hitting too hard to stop. "Return fire!" he screamed. "All weapons, maximum power!" The alien weapons did hit human ships. Shields flared and armor sparked. But the human vessels kept fighting. Their ships were built to take damage and keep working. Their crews were trained to fight until they died. More importantly, they were angry. Every human in the fleet had lost someone to the Coalition's attacks. Friends, family, entire worlds of people who had never hurt anyone. Now they had the chance to make the aliens pay, and they took it with cold, calculated fury. The battle lasted 47 minutes. When it ended, the Apex Coalition fleet was gone, not retreated, not damaged, gone. Destroyed so completely that rescue teams would find only scattered debris and silence. But the humans weren't finished. "Signal all Coalition homeworlds," Admiral Chen ordered. "Tell them they have 24 hours to surrender their governments and military leaders to human custody. Anyone who refuses will be considered a continued threat." The response was swift and panicked. Several smaller Coalition species surrendered immediately, begging for mercy. Others tried to negotiate. A few, led by the Krell and Zephyrians, chose to fight. They learned that human mercy was no longer available. The Siege of Krell. Prime became a legend that would terrify future generations. The human fleet didn't attack the planet directly. Instead, they surrounded it with thousands of automated drones that prevented anything from leaving or entering. The drones were self-replicating, using asteroids and space debris to build more of themselves. Within weeks, Krell Prime was trapped, behind an impenetrable wall of human technology. "You want to starve us?" transmitted the Krell High Command to Admiral Chen. "This is not honorable warfare." Chen's response was broadcast to the entire galaxy. "You massacred 50 million civilians. Honor died with them. Surrender your war criminals or starve." The siege continued for 3 months. The proud Krell Empire, which had ruled dozens of worlds for 1,000 years, collapsed as their homeworld slowly died. Their allies abandoned them. Their colonies declared independence. Their military fell apart. When they finally surrendered, handing over General Vex and his co-conspirators, the Krell found that the galaxy they had known was gone forever. The Zephyrian Empire tried a different approach. They attempted to rally other species against the human threat, claiming that humanity had become the real enemy of galactic peace. "Look what they've done to the Krell," the Zephyrian Emperor proclaimed to the Federation Council. "Today it's us. Tomorrow it will be you. They must be stopped before they conquer us all. Some species listened. A new coalition formed, this one dedicated to containing human expansion. 43 species pledged ships and resources to fight the human menace. Admiral Chen's response was swift and terrible. Operation Righteous Fury launched simultaneously across the galaxy. Human fleets struck not just military targets, but the infrastructure that supported them. Shipyards, training academies, weapons factories, and command centers vanished in coordinated attacks. But the humans also targeted something else: the leaders themselves. Every government official, military commander, and political figure who had supported attacks on humanity found themselves hunted by human special forces. These weren't soldiers in the traditional sense. They were hunters, trained in methods that made assassination an art form. The Altarian Prime Minister disappeared from his heavily guarded palace, leaving only a note. Justice has been served. The Zephyrian admiral, who had laughed at human weakness, was found dead in his personal quarters, with security footage showing no one entering or leaving. One by one, the leaders of the anti-human coalition vanished or died. The galaxy learned that humans didn't just fight wars with ships and guns. They fought with shadows and secrets, striking fear into the hearts of anyone who opposed them. The psychological warfare was perhaps even more effective than the military campaigns. Alien species that had never feared anything now jumped at shadows, wondering if human assassins were coming for them next. "They're not like other predators," one terrified Zephyrian general confided to his aide. "When we hunt, we kill and move on. When humans hunt, they make sure their prey knows death is coming." The Federation Council called an emergency session to address the human crisis. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to discuss how to contain humanity's apparent transformation into galactic conquerors. They were surprised when Admiral Chen requested permission to address the council personally. She arrived alone, walking into a chamber filled with species that feared and hated her. Some had weapons hidden beneath their diplomatic robes. Others had poison ready, willing to die if they could take her with them. Sarah ignored them all. "You seem confused," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the massive chamber. "You think we become conquerors. You think we want to rule the galaxy." Nervous murmurs rippled through the assembled delegates. "You're wrong," she continued. "We never wanted to rule anyone. We wanted to live in peace. You made that impossible." The Altarian representative stood up. "Your actions speak louder than your words, Admiral. You've destroyed entire fleets. You've toppled governments. We've eliminated threats," Sarah interrupted. "Every ship we destroyed was crewed by people who participated in genocide. Every government we toppled supported the murder of our civilians. Every leader we removed was a war criminal." She gestured to the chamber around her. "Look at yourselves. You're terrified of us now. But why? We haven't attacked a single peaceful species. We haven't threatened anyone who wasn't trying to kill us first." An uncomfortable silence fell over the chamber. "The difference," Sarah continued, "is that we finish what others start. When you attacked our colonies, you expected us to file complaints and beg for help. When you killed our children, you thought we'd negotiate for the return of their bodies." Her voice grew colder. "You forgot that peace is a choice. We chose it for 3 centuries because we thought the galaxy was civilized. You proved us wrong." She turned to leave, then stopped. "The war ends when every person responsible for attacking humanity is dead or in our custody. Until then, we suggest you stay out of our way." As Admiral Chen left the chamber, the assembled delegates sat in stunned silence. They had expected threats or demands for surrender. Instead, they had received something worse: the promise that humanity would never stop hunting their enemies. The war continued, but its nature had changed. The Apex Coalition was broken. Its leaders were dead or captured, but human fleets continued to move through the galaxy, hunting down every ship, every base, every individual who had played any role in the attacks on human colonies. The galaxy learned that when humans went to war, they didn't stop until they won completely. There were no partial victories, no negotiated settlements, no face-saving retreats. There was only total victory or death. Most species chose surrender. But the humans weren't interested in ruling conquered territories or enslaving defeated enemies. They had a different goal entirely, making sure that no one would ever again mistake human compassion for weakness. The message was simple and clear: humanity was still peaceful. But their peace would be backed by overwhelming force, and anyone who threatened it would face consequences that would make their species remember for 1,000 generations. As Admiral Chen prepared for the final phase of the war, she received a message from Earth. It was from Sophie's teacher, reading a letter the little girl had written before New Geneva's destruction. Dear Admiral Chen, Daddy says you're keeping us safe from bad people. Thank you. When I grow up, I want to be like you and protect everyone. Sarah closed her eyes, remembering the bright-eyed child who would never grow up. The galaxy had taken humanity's innocence. Now humanity would take their peace of mind. The war was almost over, but the lessons it taught would last forever. 5 years had passed since the last shot was fired in what historians would call the Human War. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the rebuilt city center of New Geneva, watching children play in gardens that grew over the graves of the dead. The planet lived again, but it was different now. Orbital defense platforms hung in the sky like steel moons, visible reminders of humanity's transformation. The children playing below would grow up knowing that their safety came not from alien goodwill, but from human strength. Admiral, called Captain Torres, now serving as Earth's Minister of Galactic Security. The Zephyrian delegation has arrived for the anniversary ceremony. Sarah nodded without looking away from the children. The Zephyrian Empire had been among the last to surrender, fighting until their homeworld burned and their emperor died in the ruins of his palace. Now their surviving leaders came to New Geneva every year to pay respects to the dead and renew their oaths of peace. It was a ritual repeated across the galaxy. Former enemies bowing before human memorials, promising never again to mistake mercy for weakness. The ceremony began at sunset, as it always did. Representatives from over 200 species gathered in the Memorial Plaza, where the names of New Geneva's 50 million victims were carved into black stone walls. At the center stood a simple statue, a human family embracing with the inscription, "They died for peace, we live for justice." Sarah watched the alien delegations approach the memorial, each carrying offerings of remembrance. The Krell brought crystals from their homeworld. The Altarians offered rare flowers. The Zephyrians presented works of art created by their finest craftsmen. All of them had learned the same lesson. Humanity forgave, but humanity never forgot. The new Galactic Federation was smaller than its predecessor. 67 species had been expelled for their role in the Apex Coalition. Their governments had been replaced, their military forces disbanded, their weapons technology confiscated. They existed now as monitored territories, allowed self-governance only under human oversight. The remaining species had accepted what they called the Terran Accords, a set of laws that governed galactic civilization. The most important law was simple. Any attack on civilian populations would be met with immediate and overwhelming human retaliation. "The universe is safer now," the Altarian Prime Minister had said during the signing ceremony. "We all know the rules." But the real change wasn't in laws or governments. It was in how every species viewed humanity. Captain Elena Rodriguez commanded the TSS Guardian, one of hundreds of human ships that now patrolled the galaxy. Unlike the old human fleet, these vessels were openly armed with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Their crews were trained warriors, not just explorers and rescuers. Contact on long-range sensors, reported her tactical officer. Unidentified ships attacking a Thrak civilian transport. The Thrak were a peaceful species of traders, recently accepted into the Federation after proving their commitment to the New Galactic Order. Their ships carried no weapons and relied on Federation protection from pirates and raiders. Pirates? Elena asked. Possibly, or maybe raiders from the outer territories. Elena didn't need to think long. The standing orders were clear. Any attack on civilians would be met with immediate human response. Take us to maximum speed. Signal the attackers that they have one chance to surrender. The Guardian dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly. Between the raiders and their victims, 6 pirate ships, armed with old military equipment, faced a single human vessel. Human ship, transmitted the pirate leader. This doesn't concern you. We just want the cargo, not a fight. Elena's response was broadcast on all frequencies, including emergency channels that would reach every ship in the system. This is Captain Rodriguez of the human ship Guardian. You have 10 seconds to power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Anyone who fires on civilians in human-protected space will be destroyed. The pirates hesitated. They outnumbered the human ship 6-1. Their ships were designed for battle, while the Guardian was alone in deep space, far from any backup. They made the wrong choice. When the battle ended 3 minutes later, 6 pirate ships were drifting hulks, and the Thrak transport was safe. Elena's crew rescued the few surviving pirates, not out of mercy, but to send a message. Tell everyone you meet, she informed the captured raiders. Humans protect the innocent, always. The recording of the battle spread across galactic networks within hours, as Elena had intended. Pirates, raiders, and warlords across the galaxy received the message clearly. Civilian targets were off limits, and humans would enforce that rule with overwhelming force. Dr. James Webb, son of the late Dr. Marcus Webb, worked in the rebuilt Terran Peace Institute. Unlike his father's generation, James understood that peace required more than good intentions. It required the will and ability to destroy anyone who threatened it. The old institute was naive, he explained to a group of young diplomats. They believed that reasonable people could always find reasonable solutions. We know better now. His students, all of them born after the war, listened carefully. They would become humanity's new ambassadors, carrying the message of peace backed by strength to every corner of the galaxy. Diplomacy is still our first choice, James continued, but it's no longer our only choice. When you negotiate with alien governments, they need to know that humanity will honor our agreements and protect our friends. They also need to know what happens to our enemies. The lesson had been learned well. Human diplomats now spoke with quiet authority that came from knowing their words were backed by the galaxy's most powerful military force. Trade agreements were honored. Peace treaties were respected. Human civilians moved freely through space under the protection of human warships. But perhaps the most important change was in humanity itself. Admiral Chen visited the Archive of Remembrance, a vast library built beneath New Geneva's surface. Here, the records of every human who had died in the war were preserved forever. Not just their names and dates, but their stories, their dreams, their last words. She stopped at one particular display. Elena Webb, age 6, daughter of Dr. Marcus Webb. The little girl's final drawing was preserved under glass, showing stick figures of her family holding hands under a smiling sun. "We kept our promise," Sarah whispered to the image. "The bad people can't hurt anyone anymore." In the 5 years since the war's end, not a single human civilian had been killed by alien action. The galaxy's predator species had learned to hunt each other, not humanity. The peaceful species lived under human protection, knowing that any threat to them would bring swift retribution. The cost had been enormous. Humanity had sacrificed its innocence to gain security. Human children now grew up learning both compassion and warfare. Human ships carried medical supplies and orbital bombardment weapons. Human diplomats offered aid with one hand and held weapons with the other. But it worked. As Admiral Chen prepared to leave the archive, she received a message from the orbital defense platforms. A Krell delegation was requesting permission to land, carrying what they claimed was important information about potential threats in the outer territories. "Grant them landing clearance," she ordered, "but remind them of the rules." The rules were simple. No weapons, no large delegations, no sudden movements, and complete honesty in all dealings with humans. The Krell had learned these rules the hard way, when their home world was blockaded and their government fell. The delegation arrived carrying data chips and star charts. Their leader, a young Krell officer who had been a child during the war, approached Admiral Chen with visible nervousness. "Admiral," he said, his voice carefully respectful, "we have detected unusual activity in the void sectors, ships that don't match any known configuration. We thought humans should know." Sarah studied the data. Unknown ships in unexplored space could mean anything from lost colonies to entirely new species. Either way, it was humanity's responsibility to investigate. "Thank you for bringing this to our attention," she told the Krell officer. "You've done the right thing." The young alien straightened with pride. His species had gone from conquerors to willing servants of human peace, and he seemed genuinely happy to serve. As the Krell delegation departed, Admiral Chen looked out at the stars and smiled grimly. Somewhere out there, unknown beings were making first contact with the galaxy. They would learn, as everyone eventually did, that the universe had rules now. Humans had written those rules in blood and steel. Anyone who wanted to challenge them was welcome to try. The galaxy was at peace, not because its inhabitants were peaceful, but because they were afraid. They had learned that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their unwillingness to quit. When pushed into war, humans didn't fight until they were tired or satisfied or until they had made their point. They fought until their enemies were broken so completely that they would never be a threat again. And if new threats emerged from the unknown depths of space, they would learn the same lesson that the Apex Coalition had learned. The universe belonged to whoever was strong enough to keep it. Humanity had claimed that strength through terrible sacrifice, and they would never give it up again.